There is a restlessness that plagues the modern spirit, a constant seeking for a place of absolute safety and stability. We dedicate our lives to building external fortresses, career success, financial buffers, approval networks, and seemingly perfect relationships. Yet, despite all this effort, one sharp word, one unexpected loss, or one single failure can shatter our carefully constructed sense of peace, leaving us feeling exposed and powerless. This deep vulnerability stems from a single, profound misunderstanding: the location of our power. We have mistakenly placed the key to lasting calm outside ourselves, contingent upon the unpredictable world. The ancient wisdom of Buddhism and Zen offers a radical reorientation. It teaches that true, unshakable power is not found in controlling the external world, but in mastering the mind's internal relationship with reality. This mastery is called detachment, the liberating art of unclinging. Part 1: The Root Paradox, the Nature and Intensity of Clinging, Upādāna. The first noble truth states that suffering exists. The second explains its origin, attachment, or more precisely, the demanding, thirsty, and tenacious grasping known as Upādāna. We must go beyond the simple intellectual recognition of this fact and explore the sheer intensity with which the mind clings. Upādāna is the engine of our discontent. It's the ego's terrified insistence that reality must conform to its internal script. We don't just want success, we demand it as validation. We don't just enjoy comfort, we insist upon it as a birthright. The moment the external world deviates from this rigid script, the inner system goes into psychological shock. Consider the ordinary phenomenon of waiting in traffic. The external reality is merely a collection of motionless metal boxes. The suffering, however, is a vivid, internal storm: the hot flush of anger, the anxiety about being late, the mental condemnation of other drivers, and the relentless argument with the fact that the light is not changing fast enough. This entire vortex of pain is self-generated by the clinging mind's demand: I must be moving now. This should not be happening. The intensity of Upādāna is amplified by a deep, unconscious fear of impermanence, anicca. We live in a universe defined by flow, change, decay, and transformation. To cling to a moment of pleasure, a position of power, or a state of being is to guarantee a violent separation when the moment inevitably passes. The tighter the grip, the more wrenching the pain of inevitable loss. The mind, in its clinging, creates an entire ecosystem of defensive narratives. When we cling to the identity of being smart, we resist any new information that challenges our existing views. When we cling to the illusion of perfection, we become paralyzed by the fear of making a mistake. This clinging is a constant drain on our energy, forcing us into a state of perpetual psychological tension. Detachment, in this context, is not about becoming cold or uncaring. Rather, it is about maintaining a clear perspective. It is about becoming real, accepting the truth of change and releasing the fruitless demand for external guarantees. It means transferring the seat of our security from the unreliable external environment to the reliable core of our own mindful presence. The goal is to move from being an anxious victim of external change to becoming an unshakable witness to the natural flow of existence. This understanding of Upādāna is the necessary first step toward true inner power. Part 2: The Zen Master's Revelation, the Expanded Empty Boat Story. The teaching of non-clinging is best illuminated by the timeless story of the Zen Master and the empty boat, a narrative that reveals the profound psychological mechanism of projection and absorption. The master had taken his small skiff deep into the misty, central reaches of the lake. He was seeking the ultimate stillness, a place where the boundaries between his mind and the vastness of the water blurred. He had spent hours in deep, focused meditation, the very air around him imbued with a profound, almost audible silence. Suddenly, the stillness was violently ruptured, a sharp, grating thwack against the hull. The small boat shuddered, nearly knocking the master off balance. The force of the impact was disproportionate to the size of the boat, and the sudden shock ripped him out of his meditative state with the speed and intensity of an electric current. In the first millisecond of awareness, before his eyes were even fully open, the conditioned mind took over. A fierce, blinding indignation surged from his solar plexus up into his throat. His blood pressure spiked. The inner voice was loud and accusatory. How dare they? The carelessness, the disrespect for the solitude, the sheer, blind ego of this person. They have ruined hours of dedicated practice. His entire being was mobilized for swift, righteous confrontation. He was prepared to unleash the full force of his moral outrage. He opened his eyes, ready to fix his glare upon the perpetrator. He turned to shout, his mouth already forming the first sharp words of rebuke. But what he saw instantly annihilated his anger. The vessel that had collided with his own was an old, battered rowboat. Its oars were lying haphazardly on the seats, unused. There was no one aboard. The knot securing it to the distant shore had simply frayed, and the boat had drifted aimlessly on the quiet current until it made contact. It was an empty shell, a vessel without a captain, driven by impersonal forces of nature. The master felt the monumental structure of his internal rage, built just moments before, implode. His anger, which had been so hot and so real, suddenly felt ridiculous, a magnificent energy wasted on an inanimate object. He realized that the anger was not a true response to the damage. It was a psychological mechanism ready to attach itself to a mind. Since there was no human mind to project intent onto, his blame had no target, and thus, his suffering had no foundation. This was the profound lesson. The source of your pain is the intent you project. Most of the difficulty we face, the rude behavior, the thoughtless actions, the careless words, comes from people who are, in their own way, empty boats, drifting aimlessly, driven by the strong, unseen currents of their own pain, anxiety, and ignorance. There is no malicious intent toward you, there is only the blind chaos of their own suffering. Part 3, The High Art of Mental Non-Stick. Observe, don't absorb. The Master's revelation leads directly to the core practice of the unshakable mind. Observe, don't absorb. This is the art of cultivating a consciousness that registers reality without becoming contaminated by its negative aspects. The default setting of the mind is that of an emotional sponge. When harsh words, negative energy, or aggressive emotions are directed toward us, the sponge immediately expands and internalizes this toxicity. We absorb the criticism and interpret it as an absolute truth about ourselves. We absorb the other person's stress and begin to carry it as our own burden. This is why we often feel heavy, drained, and emotionally exhausted after conflict. To practice non-absorption, you must intentionally change the texture of your awareness. Instead of a sponge, become a calm, vast mirror of the Zen tradition. The mirror reflects the image perfectly. It shows the ugliness, the light, the darkness. but no quality of the reflected image ever sticks to the mirror's surface. The mirror remains pure, clean, and unaffected. The practical discipline of non-absorption. 1. Stop personalizing the impact. When a difficult word or event strikes, your initial mental comment must be, "This is not about me." Recognize that the person projecting anger or criticism is primarily projecting their own inner state. Their outburst is a statement about their turbulence, not a definitive judgment of your worth. You detach the event from your identity. 2. Acknowledge and quarantine the sensation. Do not suppress the feeling, that is denial. Instead, acknowledge the physical sensation generated by the stimulus, the quickening pulse, the clenching stomach, the heat of defensive anger. Name it. There is the sensation of being attacked. It is located in my chest. By naming and locating the sensation, you separate the objective feeling from the emotional narrative. You are the observer of the pain, not the owner of the narrative. 3. Refuse the mental counter-argument. Absorption continues long after the external event ends, usually as a relentless, internal argument where you justify yourself and condemn the other person. To practice non-absorption is to abruptly drop this argument. The moment the internal debate begins, you consciously interrupt it, saying, "Empty boat. I am not carrying this." You redirect your attention, to your breath, to your feet, to the task at hand. This discipline requires immense practice, but every single successful act of non-absorption strengthens the boundary of your inner peace. It is the realization that your most vital job is to guard the integrity of your own mind. Part 4. The Gap of True Freedom, the Unbreakable Power in the Pause. The path to non-absorption is paved by the constant cultivation of the pause, the critical moment of choice between what happens to you, stimulus, and what you do next, response. For the unawakened mind, this gap is zero. The stimulus and the response are fused, creating a life lived by instinct and past conditioning. The person becomes merely a puppet of their environment, reacting predictably to every tug of circumstance, doomed to repeat cycles of regret and conflict. The Zen master and the Buddha understood that this tiny, microscopic space is the absolute center of human freedom. The practice is to make that space conscious, intentional, and, eventually, a natural reflex. When a crisis hits, a sudden loss, a shocking betrayal, a violent argument, the mind's accelerator slams down. Your spiritual practice is the ability to hit the brake in that instant. The 3 interventions of the pause. 1. Physical disruption, the anchor breath. The moment the emotional tidal wave hits, the first, non-negotiable step is to pause all movement and take one slow, deliberate, deep breath, pulling the awareness down to the abdomen. This action physically counters the brain's adrenaline dump, signaling to the nervous system that the pre-programmed fight-or-flight response is being overridden. The breath is the immediate lifeline back to presence. 2. The 6-second rule of clarity. The mind needs time to allow the initial wave of high-intensity emotion, like blinding anger, to subside. Research suggests that most high-intensity emotions peak and begin to dissipate within 6 seconds. Use the pause to silently count those 6 seconds. In that brief window, you are separating the emotion, the involuntary chemical reaction, from the action, the voluntary choice. 3. The identity check. Who speaks? In the pause, you ask the defining question, if I respond now, will it be my highest, wisest self speaking, or my wounded, reactive ego? This shifts the focus from the external provocation to your own internal integrity. When you choose the pause, you detach your action from your emotion, ensuring that your response is rooted in consciousness, not chaos. The ability to successfully intervene in that critical gap is the measure of your internal discipline. The pause is not a luxury. It is the fundamental mechanism of human liberation and the cornerstone of genuine inner power. Part 5. The Spiritual Alchemy. Let the fire burn out on its own. The power cultivated in the pause allows us to truly practice the profound alchemy of non-hatred. As laid out by the Buddha, hatred is never ended by hatred. Only by non-hatred is hatred ended. This is an unchangeable law. This teaching stands in stark contrast to the world's wisdom, which encourages swift retaliation, justification, and defensive aggression. The world operates on the principle of equal force. The awakened mind operates on the principle of transformation. When aggression is thrown at you, the ego screams for justice, demanding that you return the fire. But when you meet anger with anger, you are simply joining the other person in their suffering. You momentarily feel the rush of self-righteousness, but the outcome is always a guaranteed internal loss. Your peace is destroyed, your energy is wasted, and the conflict is intensified, securing its return in the future. The strategy of stillness. 1. Refusal to engage in the physics of conflict. By refusing to throw fire back, you break the fundamental law of reciprocal action. You detach your response from the provocation. The emotional missile launched by the other person, intended to elicit a chain reaction, hits a void, a space of stillness. 2. Starving the fire. Anger and hatred are energies that require fuel. That fuel is always a counter-reaction. When the other person is met with quiet, unwavering stillness, not fear, but solid calm, their energy has nothing to consume. It is forced to turn inward and exhaust itself within its source. The fire dies because you refuse to give it oxygen. 3. The higher purpose. This choice is not passive. It is the highest form of spiritual discipline, prioritizing the preservation of one's own inner integrity and consciousness over the fleeting, temporary satisfaction of winning the argument. You are not fighting them, you are fighting the ancient, destructive habit of reaction within yourself. This practice of allowing the fire to burn out on its own requires absolute detachment from the ego's need to be right, to be heard, and to have the last word. It is the ultimate expression of confidence, the confidence that your peace is inviolable and does not depend on silencing or defeating others. The strongest shelter in the storm of conflict is the steady, unmoving silence of your own mind. Part 6. The Guardian of Inner Resources. Silence is the language of the wise. The mastery of non-hatred and the effectiveness of the pause rely heavily on cultivating true silence. We must recognize that words are not free, they are a currency, and often, an expensive one. In modern society, silence is often experienced as an awkward vacuum that must be filled. This compulsion stems from the fear of intimacy, the fear of self-reflection, or the fear of appearing subservient. But the Zen tradition reclaims silence as a powerful, intentional state of being. Silence is not merely the absence of sound, it is the presence of unfragmented attention. The wise person understands that most words spoken in moments of tension are regretful, redundant, or purely defensive. They leak precious mental energy and often commit the speaker to positions they cannot gracefully retreat from later. The detachment of silence. 1. Detaching from the need for justification. silence is the refusal to frantically defend the ego. It is an acknowledgement that your truth does not require external validation or explanation. When someone accuses or criticizes, your internal silence communicates, "I am listening, but I am not moved. My integrity stands on its own." 2. The observer's advantage. While you are silent, the other person's full mind is revealed. They may reveal their weaknesses, their fears, or the true nature of their motivation. Silence makes you an objective observer, while their compulsion to speak makes them a predictable actor. The one who speaks less always has the information advantage. 3. Rooting words in clarity. Silence is the laboratory where wise words are prepared. When you finally choose to speak, your words are not reactions, they are offerings, precise, necessary, rooted in clarity, and delivered without emotional contamination. This is the difference between shouting a complaint and articulating a principle. To cultivate silence is to become the guardian of your own energy and wisdom. It is the highest expression of detachment from the world's constant demands for noise and reaction. Part 7. The Final Frontier. Acceptance ends all suffering. The ultimate culmination of detachment is the radical practice of acceptance. It is the point where the psychological warfare against reality finally ceases. Suffering is defined not by the experience of pain, but by our desperate and futile resistance to that pain. We resist the loss, the failure, the weather, the unfairness, the illness, clinging fiercely to the fantasy that reality should be otherwise. This internal conflict, the gap between the fact, what is, and the demand, what should be, is the source of all secondary suffering. Acceptance is the simple, honest recognition, this is the reality of the situation right now. It is vital to reiterate the distinction, acceptance is not endorsement. You do not have to approve of injustice, loss, or pain to accept that they are present facts in the current moment. Acceptance is a navigational tool, not a moral judgment. When you accept the existence of a difficult situation, 1. The internal war ceases, the resistance, the primary psychological engine of suffering, immediately turns off. The frantic, exhausting cycle of, "I wish this hadn't happened," stops, and a profound, quiet calm takes its place. 2. Energy is liberated for action. The massive amount of psychic energy that was locked up in fighting the reality is instantly freed and becomes available for adaptation, healing, and constructive forward movement. You stop debating the past and start engaging with the future. 3. Embracing the flow. Acceptance aligns you with the universal law of impermanence. You surrender the illusion of control and choose instead to flow with the inevitable current of change. This is the deepest, most stable form of peace available to the human mind. Detachment, realized as acceptance, is the declaration that your peace is independent of external conditions. It is the ultimate act of sovereignty over your own mind. Part 8. The Spỉitual Gymnastics, Focused Energy Over Time, Bhāvanā. How do we transform these philosophical principles into lived reality? Through the consistent, focused, and gentle training of the mind known as Bhāvanā, cultivation or development. The unshakable mind is not a gift, it is a meticulously crafted achievement. It is the result of thousands of small, conscious choices accumulated over time. The error most people make is seeking one grand, instantaneous enlightenment. Bhāvanā teaches that the deep structures of the mind, the habits of reaction, clinging, and absorption, are dismantled slowly, brick by brick. The principles of conscious cultivation. 1. The micro-practice. True Bhāvanā is applied not just on the meditation cushion, but in the micro-moments of daily life. The moment a notification irritates you, the moment a line of people moves slowly, the moment you are about to utter a sharp word, these are your spiritual gymnasiums. Every time you choose the pause, choose silence, or choose acceptance instead of the default reaction, you are performing a powerful act of cultivation, gently reshaping your neural pathways. 2. Focus on consistency, not intensity. It is far more valuable to practice the pause 5 times a day, every day, than to spend one intense weekend trying to detach from everything. Bhāvanā thrives on regularity, on the steady, focused application of awareness. 3. The internal alchemist. Your primary work is to transform what is within. You stop wasting energy trying to coerce the external world into meeting your demands. Instead, you focus that energy on refining your response, clarifying your intention, and strengthening your internal architecture of peace. You become the alchemist of your own consciousness. Detachment is a continuous process of letting go of the small things so you can hold on to the large, important things, your peace, your awareness, and your capacity for compassionate action. Bhāvanā is the quiet, dedicated commitment to this profound self-transformation. Part 9. The Unclinging Heart, Conclusion and Final Wisdom. We stand now at the end of this journey, armed with the 7 keys to unlock the profound, inherent power of the detached mind. The unshakable life is not the life without storms, but the life lived in the unwavering center of those storms. The great liberation is realizing that the source of your suffering and the source of your peace reside in the same place, your mind. You hold the power to choose how you relate to every moment of existence. You can choose the exhausting path of clinging and resistance, or the liberating path of observation and acceptance. Detachment is the ultimate act of self-love, freeing your heart from the bondage of conditions and the terror of impermanence. By refusing to absorb the chaos of the world, by claiming your pause, and by embracing acceptance, you align yourself with the truth of the universe, the eternal flow. Let the words of the wise guide your steps forward. Give up the search for joy and pain, and be free from all attachment. Freedom is not found in the external world, it is found in the internal release. Give up the search for external guarantees and find joy in the process of simply being present. Do not seek the answers that are not to be found because you cannot live them. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Rainer Maria Rilke, echoing a Zen sentiment, be present with the mystery of life. Do not cling to a need for certainty. Live the practice of detachment, and the answers, the peace, the power, the freedom, will live their way into you. May your heart be a silent, unshakable sanctuary, rooted in the peace that comes from the ultimate release of all clinging. If the architecture of inner peace we explored today resonates deep within you, please take this wisdom into your day. Commit to noticing one moment where you successfully observe without absorbing. Share your experience in the comments below. And most importantly, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Your commitment supports the sharing of these life-changing teachings across the world. Thank you for seeking stillness with us.